larger the quantity demanded. So normally we say the higher the price, the lower the quantity demanded. And the lower the price, the higher the quantity. But they are moving in opposite direction. When we're having our discussions last week about our graphs, we said that when you have two graphs that behaves this way, as one is moving up, the other one is moving down. How do we describe that? What did we say was the nature of the slope of the curve? So we've seen that as price is increasing, price is increasing, quantity will be decreasing. Sorry, the pen is not right. Quantity is decreasing. So if it behaves this way, what does it tell us about the nature of our curve? How would we describe it? How would we describe the relationship between the price and the quantity? Yes. Mm-hmm. Hey, have you forgotten what we discussed last week? I discussed this last week. When you have two variables, you plot them as one of the variables is increasing, the other is decreasing. What did we say was the nature of this? Yes, I am.
Madam, please, I wasn't in that class, but I want to say something
Why were
concerning
you
the
in
question.
class?
Please, I didn't know we had a class, and I didn't have any
Okay.
links to it.
All right, that's fine. Okay, let's hear you then.
Madam, please, can I say that the demand curve slope downward from left to right?
The slopes downwards from left to right. We use a term, apart from yes, it's true, that it slopes downwards from left to right. We use a term to describe it. You remember that we said, those who are around, does anyone? Thank you. Yeah.
Madam, I think, Madam, please let me try.
Yes,
It
next.
will be a negative slope.
A
Like,
negative relationship. It
yes.
means it's negatively sloped. Please remember now. We don't have to forget what we learn, because we are building on what we've discussed already. We need to catch up, always revise our notes before the next lecture. Okay. So, like our colleagues Riley have put it rightly, the law of demand confirms a negative relationship between price and quantity. We said when two variables are moving in opposite direction, as one is increasing, the other one is decreasing, it means they have a negative relationship. We also mentioned last week that another way of putting this is that they have an inverse relationship. So inverse relationship or negative relationship. There's a negative relationship between price and quantity. There's an inverse relationship between price and quantity of a commodity. In other words, as price is increasing, quantity is decreasing. As price is decreasing, quantity is increasing. And that is the law of demand. All things being equal, the higher the price of a commodity, the lower the quantity that is being demanded. Okay, the lower the price of a commodity, the higher the quantity demanded. Because of that, when we draw a demand curve, we will see that it will slope downwards. We say the demand curve slopes downwards from left to right, and we'll see that it is so. Please, are we all together? I hope it's clear to all of us.
Yes.
So let's take this hypothetical, have a look at the hypothetical situation. So we are assuming that this is the quantities of a can of Coke at various prices, and the prices are expressways. So this should be a very long time ago. Now, nothing in Ghana is sold in pesos. We are just using it for illustration's sake. So let's maintain this. We are assuming that these are the various prices. That the price was 30 pesos, it moved to 40 pesos, 50, and for each of the changes in prices, you see that there are corresponding changes in quantity as well. Okay, so when the price was 30, the quantity was 120. When it was 40, the quantity was 100. So this confirms what we were discussing. When the price increased to 40, you realize the quantity reduced to 100. Okay, when the price increases to 50, quantity again reduces to 80. When you present the relationship between price and quantity like this in the form of a table, so we say a tabular representation of the relationship that exists between price of a commodity and quantity demanded of a commodity. We call it a demand schedule. Demand schedule. So a demand schedule, if henceforth if you hear demand schedule, it means it's just putting the relationship that exists between price and quantity in the form of a table. Okay. And we can plot this. You can plot it if you have a graph sheet. You can plot it just as we've been doing in our mathematics classes. Told you the graphs, although normally we use our freehand, but all the features and the assumptions are just like we do when we are having our mathematics classes or drawing a graph in maths. So if we are to plot the information that we have in the schedule, this is what we're going to have. Okay, this is what we're going to have. So we realize that at price 30, the quantity was 120. Okay, so if you plot it 30, quantity 120, you plot them, you have a curve like this. And it's sloping downwards. In drawing it, if you, after plotting, taking note of all your points, what you do is that you draw a curve to join all your points like this. If you draw a curve, a line that joins all the points. So you start, as we said, it slopes downwards. This curve is sloping downwards. And it starts from the right hand side. So it slopes downwards from left to right. In describing the demand curve, that is one thing that you can see. It is negatively sloped, or it slopes downwards from left to right. So that is one key thing. When you put the relationship, just as we did in the schedule, so when you put it in the form of a table, a tabular representation, you call it a demand schedule. When you put it in the form of a graph, you call it a demand curve. The same information, but this time you put it in the form of a graph, you call it a demand curve. The demand curve is a graphical representation between the relationship between price and quantity. Graphical representation of the relationship between price and quantity of the commodity. Is it clear?
Yes,
Is it clear to all of us, please? Okay.
yes, madam.
So, okay. So there, like just as we said, the demand curve It's a curve showing the relationship between price of a commodity and quantity demanded within a given period of time. Okay, that is the demand curve. Another concept that we need to look at is the concept of market demand. Why we just saw, yes, please, is there a question?
Yeah, madam, I wanted to ask, is it always is the demand curve a straight line or it can?
Please speak up.
Please, I wanted to ask, the demand curve, is it always a straight line?
No, it's not always a straight line. It can be curved, but the important thing is it moves downwards from left to right. Yeah, we are assuming
Okay, thank
the interval, constant interval. That's why it's linear. It's straight. Okay. So I was saying that in a typical market, you may have several consumers, and each consumer would have his own demand. In effect, the way I will react, okay, or I will change quantities if there are any changes in price will be different from how say Mercy or Razak or any other person. Okay. So this introduces the concept of market demand into the discussion. And for market demand, this is where you bring all the individual, the demand of all the individuals in the market together. So for instance, if we are all purchasing bread, and then we have different prices, and then at these prices, we are each of the individuals are supposed to purchase a certain quantity. Here we are assuming that there are 3 consumers. There may be more. In a typical market, we know there are several consumers, but here we are looking at we are dealing with the assumption that there are only 3 consumers of bread here. When the price was 2 cedis, individual 1 decided to buy no bread. When it was 1 cedi 50, he bought 1 cedi, sorry, the quantity was 1, and then it goes on like that. As it reduces, when the price reduces, you see that more quantities are bought. And then in the same way, we have the quantities that were purchased by individual 2, given the different prices. You see that the quantities for individual 2 differs from the quantities that were purchased by individual 1. And the same is the case for individuals. Because our preferences are different. So we are bound to have these things. Okay. When you combine at different prices, if you combine the quantities that were demanded by the various individuals, the various consumers, it gives you market demand. In other words, when the price was 2, if you want to know how many slices of bread, the quantity of bread that was bought in that market, it is the quantity that the total quantity that was demanded in that market, the quantity that was bought by the various individuals or the various consumers. This how it makes sense. Are you with me, please?
Madam,
Madam,
please, can you come in?
please, we are
What I'm saying,
not hearing you well.
for instance, we are in popular market, and there are just three of us. Okay, because number of consumers who are buying bags are 3. If you want to know the total demand for bags, you would have to know the quantity that was bought by individual consumer A consumer 1, a quantity that was bought by consumer 2, and then a quantity that was bought by consumer 3 at that price. And when you add them up, it will give you the total number of bags that were bought by all the consumers in that market. Okay, so market demand is like you summing the quantities that were bought by various individuals, various consumers in that market at a given price. And that will give you the market demand. Please, is it clear now?
Yes, please.
So if the price is say 2 cedis, it means the market demand will be 0 plus 2 plus 3. Okay, 0 plus 2 plus 3, and then it gives us 5. Please declare. Is it clear to us, please?
Yes,
Madam,
Madam, please come again.
madam.
I am saying that if you want the market demand for bread, when the price is good, you just have to sum the quantities of for the individuals at price 2, and that will give you the market demand. So for individual 1, bought 0 quantities of bread. Individual 2 had 2, individual 3 was 3. So if you want to know the total or the market demand is 0 plus 2 plus 3, and that gives us 5. That is what we are dealing with. That is market demand. In the same way, if you want to know the market demand at price 1, it will be 2 plus 2 plus 8. So 2 plus 2 plus 8, it means the market demand is 12. Please, is it clear now?
Yes, madam.
We say that the market demand is the sum of all the individual demands. Is a sum of all the individual demands. Individuals may have their distinct demand, their distinct demand curves. That shows the relationship there, the various at various prices, the quantities that they will buy. When you bring the demand curves, you sum the demand curves or the demand of all individuals. You have the overall market demand. That is what we need to. Just as we are doing in a form of a schedule, we can use graphs to represent it as well. Please, any questions before we continue? All right.
Madam,
Yes, please.
please, you said something like, you said market demand is the summation, let's say, summation of all the individual demand. But
Yes.
can you say it's the summation of all the individual quantity demanded?
Okay, that is right.
Because I can see QD, and the QD is quantity demanded, or?
Yes, that is right.
Okay, thank you.
So we said that this relationship between price and quantity can be put in several ways. The first one, we said when we put it in the form of a table, that's the demand schedule, or we can put it in the form of a graph, that is demand curve. Sometimes we state it mathematically as well. We use a algebraic expression to put it, an equation to describe it. When you put it in this form, we call it a demand function. So a demand function also shows a relationship between price and quantity. Okay. I put it in the form of an equation. So here, this is our function, and the function says that it says that Q is a function of price. Okay, Q is a function of price. So we can put it in this way as well. It means quantity demanded is equal to A minus B P. Per our discussions last week, what name do we give to A? So the two variables that we are looking at are Q, the two variables that we are dealing with are quantity. And quantity is our dependent variable. And P, price. P stands for the price, and price is our independent variable. It means that how much quantity that you get, okay, depends on price. The A is constant. The B is also constant. Okay, for our discussions that we're building on our discussion we had last week. Okay. And of course, we call this A, which is the constant, we call it autonomous demand. Autonomous demand. Okay, autonomous demand. And then the A is autonomous demand. A is equals to autonomous demand. Then the B, we call it derived demand. So the B is a coefficient. Or derived demand. What does it mean? When we say autonomous demand, what does it mean? When you say something is autonomous, what does it mean? Before we even react it. When you say someone is autonomous, something is autonomous, what does it mean? Please speak up so that I will be able to. Yes. When someone is autonomous, what does it mean? Let me hear you, please. Who is speaking?
Madam, please, can you say it is independent demand?
Okay. So it means it doesn't depend on anything.
Yes, please.
In the same way, for there's this, you believe that there's this part or portion of demand that doesn't depend on price. There's this portion of demand that doesn't depend on price, and we'll explain this later on. But as we move on with the discussion, we'll appreciate this. So it is independent of price. It doesn't depend on price. We call it autonomous demand. Let's put it this way. You may not have there is a certain portion regardless of the price. You buy that amount. Regardless of whether the price of bread is 1 cedi or 10 cedis or 20 cedis. That portion that you buy, that minimum portion or amount that you buy, regardless of the price, that is what we refer to as autonomous demand. So this portion of demand doesn't depend on price. Then there's another part of quantity that depends on price. So when the price is changing, say it depends on price because as the price is changing, the quantity will also be changing. So a portion of demand that depends on price, we call that derived demand. Okay. So we should take note of that. So this is a typical demand function. You can see that the coefficient attached to price is negative. It's negative, and it confirms a law of demand that we described earlier on, that there is a negative relationship between price and quantity, and that is what this function is telling us. The negative coefficient goes to confirm that there's a negative relationship between price and quantity. This is it clear?
No,
Let's,
please.
we discussed, we all discussed earlier on that, or we saw that when prices normally, I asked you and we confirmed that when prices are increasing, quantities will be going down. So this equation that we have written confirms that assertion that, or the law of demand that states that when prices are high, quantities are low. In other words, when prices are low, quantities are high. So we have that negative coefficient, minus B. Then it is minus to confirm the negative, the inverse relationship that exists between price and quantity. It shows that when price is increasing, quantity will be falling, and that is what this confirms. If we use figures as an illustration, you could have Q is equal to 180 minus 2P. What it means is that regardless of the price, the quantity, the autonomous quantity, the autonomous amount of quantity of goods that will be consumed is 180, regardless of the price. 180 quantity or units of the commodity will be consumed. Okay. Then, as price increases, okay, quantity will also increase. So when a percentage change in 1% change in price, for instance, will lead to a 2% decrease in quantity, and that is what this function is telling us. So in effect, apart from putting it in a graph form, you can also put it in the form of an equation like this. And it refers to, they're all talking about the same thing, whether from the table that we saw, one is going up, one is coming down, or from the graph that we saw that as it increases quantity. So from our graph, if I should go back to our graph, you see that as in reduces the quantity for, let's see for it. Okay. If it reduces, the quantity will increase. If the price reduces from 60 to 50, quantity will increase. Okay. So it's the same thing. There's an inverse relationship. It's the same thing that we are confirming using the function. So the negative sign, like I said, this negative sign confirms the negative relationship that exists between price and quantity. As price increases, quantity decreases. So these are ways of putting a demand curve. Normally, you see that for a demand curve, normally, like I said, the quantity, because quantity depends on price, we say the quantities are dependent variable, prices are independent variable, and this is how we normally put the demand function. But sometimes you may have the situation where instead of the Q being the subject, we make P the subject. It is still a demand function. Okay. When you have a demand function where P or price is the subject, we call it an inverse demand function, and you should know about that. So, for instance, the demand function is QD is equal to 10 minus 2PX. So, quantity demanded of commodity X is equal to 10 minus 2PX. That is the demand function. If we change the subject and make price the subject, so the price is moved, the same function, but we rewrite it to make price the subject, or price moves to the left-hand side. We call this the inverse demand curve. Inverse demand curve. So if in an example, so you see anywhere that someone has stated the demand function, and instead of using so a typical demand function would have expected that the quantity demanded is on the left hand side, but then you have your autonomous demand and the derived demand being expressed on the right hand side. But there's the case where you find price on the left hand side. We call this the inverse demand function, and it is simply a way of restating your demand function to make P the subject. If you want to make P the subject from this, you see, we want the P to stand alone. So this is negative. We brought it to this side to make it 2px is equal to, the 10 is still there. Now we are moving, and then we move the QD to the left hand side. It's positive here, so when it crosses, it becomes negative. So it becomes 10 minus QD. We want the px to stand alone, so it means we have to divide through by 2. So this by 2, this by 2, then this by 2. So it cancels out. Then we have px is equal to 10 divided by 2 gives us how much?
5.
5. That's how we got a 5. Then this will be QD over 2 is a way of saying 1 over 2. That's another way of stating it. And 1 over 2 is also equal to 0.5. So 0.5 QD or 1 over 2 QD. So this is also a demand. We all call this a demand function as well, but we call it an inverse demand function. A demand function where the price is made a subject. This is clear.
Yes, madam.
So far in our discussions, we've looked at just the relationship between, simplify the analysis to look at the relationship between price of a commodity and quantity demanded. So the assumption is that for our discussions so far, we have assumed that the only factor that influences quantity is price. The only factor that will influence your decision to buy a plate of jollof is the price of it. And we know that in reality, there are some factors. There are some factors that may affect the price of jollof, apart from that may affect the quantity of jollof, apart from the price of it. What other factors may influence your decision as whether you should go for a certain quantity of jollof or not, apart from the price? Are there any other factors that may influence the quantity that you demand of a commodity?
Yes, madam.
Okay. Can you tell me one of them?
The consumer's taste.
Okay. So
Consumer's taste.
you used to have to prefer or to desire jollof. Then all of a sudden, you realize that you tried fufu with a punch cracker once, and you realize no, jollof is not a match for fufu and a punch cracker. So you just changed. Now you prefer fufu and a punch cracker, or say fried rice. If that happens, it means the quantity, the price of jollof might not have changed. The price may be the same, but the only thing that has happened is that your taste and preference has changed. And when your taste and preference change, it can affect the quantity that you buy with commodity. And that is true. What else?
Your income.
Your income. How would income affect quantity?
When your income decreases, it doesn't make you buy the amount of place you want to buy.
Okay. So if income increases, all things being equal, you'll be able to buy more plates of jollof your income was 100 cedis, and a plate of jollof was 10 cedis. So you could buy 10 plates of jollof in a week. Now, your income has increased to 200 cedis, but the price hasn't changed. The price is still 10 cedis. If your income increases to 200, all things being equal, you'll be able to buy more plates of jollof. This is that clear?
Yes.
So income also influences it. What else? One last small influence. Apart from income and taste and preference, what else can influence quantity?
Madam,
Demanded of a government. Yes, please.
please can you say price of the related commodity?
Okay. So what do we
Then
mean by
maybe
price?
substitute, like let's say substitute goods, like a goods that maybe let's say Milo and cowbell coffee.
Mm-hmm.
The example of substitute goods. They can
Okay.
they can be used to interchange each other. I don't know how to say it, but
Okay.
and the complementary goods too as well.
Okay. Thank you. So yes, like she said, when you have a related commodity, what happens in the quantity that is demanded of a related commodity may affect the quantity demanded of your good. So, for instance, like she rightly mentioned, some goods are substitutes, others are complements. When we say they are substitutes, it means one can be used in place of the other. If you see jollof rice and fried rice to be substitutes, it means that to you, the satisfaction that you get when you eat fried rice is the same as jollof. So jollof and fried rice serve the same purpose. If jollof and fried rice serve the same purpose, whatever happens to the price of uh, fried rice, which is a substitute, will influence the quantity of jollof, even though the price of jollof might not have changed. Okay, so for instance, jollof is still 10 cedis. Fried rice also say 10 cedis. Then fried rice, the price of fried rice reduces to 5 cedis. Being a rational consumer, rational consumer who would want to maximize his scarce resources, the two goods serve the same purpose. Then the price of fried rice has fallen. What will you do? What will you do? Would you buy more or less of fried rice?
Madam, please, a question again. Please.
My question is that you're looking at how related commodities can affect the quantity demand of a commodity. And we are looking at substitutes. So the scenario I painted was that when, for instance, we are assuming that fried rice and jollof are substitutes. If fried rice and jollof are substitutes, and we are assuming that the plate for each of them was 10 cedis. The plate of jollof rice, which is the commodity in question, is still 10 cedis. But the plate of fried rice, the substitute good, has fallen to 5 cedis. My question is, what will be the effect on the quantity demanded of jollof?
Madam, please.
So I think the people will purchase more of the fried rice than the jollof.
Okay. So our income is fixed. If we are buying more of fried rice, given our scarce resources, it means we'll be buying less of jollof rice. This is clear. So nothing has happened to the price of jollof. The price of jollof is still 10 cedis. But the only thing that has happened in this situation is the fact that the price of the substitute would, that is the fried rice, is now relatively cheaper. Because it's relatively cheaper, consumers will move or shift to the fried rice. Because of that, quantity demanded or the demand for jollof rice will come down. So if there are substitutes, if the price of the related commodities, the substitute falls, see the quantity demanded of the other good so we should take note of that. Then, if they are complements, it means the commodities are used together. If the commodities are used together, when the quantity demanded of one increases, the quantity of the other also increases. Can you think of any commodities that are used together? Can you give me an example of complementary?
Madam,
Bone
Two
and
goods that are used together.
Pepsodent and brush.
Okay. To be able to take care, have a good oral healthcare, you need Pepsodent or toothpaste and then your brush. Okay. So when the price of say brush falls, it means more people, you have a lot of people buying the brush. And as soon as you buy the brush, so far as you buy the brush, you will need the toothpaste. So they go hand in hand. When one falls, the other, and the demand for that commodity increases. The price of one falls and the quantity demanded of that commodity increases. The quantity demanded of this complement will also increase. So we need to take note of these lines. Okay, the same goes for cars. When the prices of cars and fuel, when cars are too expensive, prices increase dramatically, and consumers cannot afford cars. This year, for instance, I haven't seen so many 2026 video. So if we assume that people are not buying cars, if they are not buying cars, it means
Please,
the,
your voice is breaking. I can't hear you properly.
sorry.
Your voice is breaking. I can't hear what you're saying properly.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. So I was saying that for the complementary goods, if, for instance, another example, apart from the brush and toothpaste, I also mentioned vehicle or car and fuel. If cars are expensive and prices of cars go up, it means quantity demanded of cars will fall. And if quantity of cars, demanded of cars fall, because the car and the fuel are complementary goods, it means the demand for the fuel will also fall. If you are buying less cars, it means we'll be buying less fuel. We call that complementary relationship. So in effect, you see that it is not just the price of the commodity. Yes, the first factor that influences the demand is the price of the commodity. We call it own price of a commodity. Apart from that, you said that income of the person also influences the commodity. If it's a normal good, when your income is increasing, buy more of it. If your income increases, you buy more of normal goods. If your income reduces, if your income increases, you buy less inferior goods. The more income you buy, if you earn more income, you buy more normal goods, you buy less So we take note of this. We've explained taste and preferences already, and expectations. If you expect that next month prices of bags of rice are going to increase, what will you do right now? What will be the quantity that you go for right now? If you expect that prices will increase next month,
You would buy more.
you buy more. It means that expectations also matter. Future expectations. In the same way, if we expected that the prices will fall, we buy less now. So sometimes it's not just because of the price, but our expectations can also make us buy more. The prices don't have necessarily changed, but expectations may make us buy more or less of a commodity. And the last thing is that when the number of consumers or the number of people who are demanding the commodity increases, it also affects the quantity that is demanded of the commodity. So in a typical market, if for instance when the population has increased, at first the number of people who are buying the commodity was 50, but now the population has increased to 1,000. It means that the more things being equal, we are likely to see an increase in quantity. So this goes to confirm that it is not just the price of a commodity that affects the quantity that is demanded of it, as we saw in our demand curve. In actual sense, there are other factors as we have listed. Okay, so we've explained these things: complementary goods, goods that are used together. So as if they are complementary goods like fuel, you know the way it will affect the quantity. We've explained them. We explained them that for substitute goods, when there's an increase in quantity of one, the other, there will be a decrease in quantity of the other. If they are complementary goods, if there's an increase in the quantity demanded of one, there will be an increase in the quantity demanded of the other. We've explained these steps. Okay. So we've also talked about normal goods. The normal goods, we said, by normal good, if a commodity is seen as a normal good, it means as your income increases, you buy more of that commodity. Okay. If it's an inferior good, it means as your income increases, you buy less of the commodity. You can also have neutral goods. For some commodities, regardless of the price, we still buy the same. Nobody will say that price of salt has increased, so he's going to put more salt in his food. Normally, there are some goods, if price changes, the quantity or income changes, the same quantity as well. So it's not like your income has increased, so you are going to put more salt in your soup now. All that neutral goods. Then another type of good is different good. Please let me land and then I will give you. Let me land and I'll give you room to ask your question. Then we have a different good. We say a good is a different good when the quantity demanded increases as price increases. So when prices are so high, we tend to buy more of different goods. For instance, second-hand clothing and the rest are seen as different goods, and consumers, individuals go for them because the prices of goods are generally high. If our income levels were increased, we go for the normal goods. Okay, and then you buy less of the inferior goods and the gifting good. So for a gifting good, we say a good is a gifting good when quantity demanded increases as price increases. Price is increasing, quantity demanded increases. It means when price falls, quantity demanded also falls. When price falls, we have a higher purchasing power. So the increase in purchasing power, we use that to buy normal goods. Because I think would have preferred the normal goods and the gifting goods, right? Only company for gifting goods because the prices were high. So when the prices come down, we'll switch to buy normal goods. So in other words, if you draw the demand curve of a gifting good, it will show an abnormal, you have an abnormal demand curve. We know that a normal demand curve slopes downwards from left to right. And if you graph the demand curve for a gifting good, you see that it slopes upwards. We call this a special type or an exceptional demand. So you should know about these types of demand and then so that in explaining the factors that affect demand, you're able to do a good job. Please, can I have your question now before we move on?
Madam, please, wanted to ask if the neutral goods, you can also term this as a necessity goods.
Yes, some neutral goods are a necessity. Some neutral goods are a necessity, but
Okay.
and not all of them, though. But in most cases, some neutral goods are necessity.
Thank you. Thank you.
Any other question? Okay. So far we've been able to look at what we mean by demand, and we said demand describes the behavior of a consumer. As price increases, what is happening? We want to simplify the analysis. That is why we are looking at the two variables at a time. But we also appreciate the fact that there may be other factors. That is why in even stating our demand curve, we said all things being equal. It means, please let me land. It means that we were holding all the other factors like taste and preference, other factors like income. We're holding them constant. Okay, and when we hold them constant, we're able to observe just the relationship between price and quantity. Please ask your question before I move on.
Madam, please, your line is breaking and it's echoing too, so we can't hear most of the things you're saying.
Okay, can you hear me now? Can you hear me now?
Yes, please. Yes, please. We can hear you if you ask that. Yes, please, we can hear you. But then as time goes on, it goes down again.
Sorry about that. I want to believe it's the network. So I will try and speak up a bit. So we are moving on the discussion to distinguish between change in demand, change in quantity demanded, and change in demand. In economics, these terms they may sound similar, but they are not. The implication is different. So the first one we are looking at is a change in quantity demanded. And change in quantity demanded comes about as a result of change in price of the commodity. When there's a change in price of the commodity in question, it will bring about a change in demand. So a change in quantity demand will bring about change in quantity demand. So for instance, if the price was at price 10, the quantity was 4, and that puts us at point A. If it falls to 6, The quantity now is 7, and then we are at B. Let's assume that let's assume that the price was 2 initially, and then it was 2 before it moved, and at 2, the quantity was, say, 12. Okay, let's call this point C. Okay, if we are at point C, the price was 2, then it increases to 6. You see that it causes the quantity to move from 12 to 7. So we are moving upward the demand curve. Here we have the same demand curve. What is happening is that we are moving either downwards or upwards of the demand curve just because price is changing. Okay, so we are moving along the same demand curve, and this comes about because there's a change in price of the commodity in question. When you have a change in price, because of a change in price of the commodity, you have a resulting change in quantity. You call this change in quantity demanded. And change in quantity demanded will result in movements along the same demand curve. Movement along the same demand curve. That is change in quantity demanded. So it's represented by movement along the same given demand curve. At some point, we are at point A, we move to point C because the price has reduced. Or we are point C, we move to point B. We are point C, we move to point B because the price has increased. We are moving along the same demand curve. Call that change in quantity demanded. And as I indicated, change in quantity demanded is caused by change in price of the commodity in purchase. So own price, change in own price causes change in quantity demanded. Apart from that, you can have change in demand. Change in demand. And change in demand is when there's a change in quantity as a result of a change in any of the other factors that affect demand. Okay, apart from own price, just as we discussed in the factors that influences demand. So in our analysis, for instance, we said the price is the same. The price of jollof is still the same. The only thing that has happened is that taste and preference has changed. So now, for instance, probably we want to this has increased, so we want to improve more of the jollof. If this has increased, then it means the quantity at the same price of 6, the price hasn't changed. The price is fixed. The only thing that is happening is that our taste and preference has increased. So now we are consuming more. When there is a change like this, where price is the same and quantity has changed, it will lead to what you call a bodily shift. Bodily shifts in the demand curve. So this time, unlike the first case where we saw movement, just one demand curve, I saw movement there, it will move, there'll be an outright movement. There'll be an outright movement, a shift. There'll be a shift in the curve because it is increasing, it will shift to the right. So if there is an increase in demand, then there will be a bodily shift to the right. So we say an outward shift or a shift to the right, a bodily shift to the right. In the same way, if it had been a decrease, if at the same price, we are reducing the quantity that we are demanding for the price because now our taste and preference has changed. Okay, it means we'll have a new demand curve, and this demand curve will be will be to the left. So this time it will shift to the left. It will shift to the left, and quantity will reduce to say 2. So the price is still 6, but because our test has changed, we have seen a shift in the demand. So in this one, we say it has shifted inward. It is decreasing, it has shifted inward, or there's a leftward movement in our demand curve. If it's increasing, it will move to the right. That is an outward or rightward movement in our curve, or a body shift. These are terms that we can use in describing change in demand. So we should take note of that. So in effect, for a change in demand to occur, from our demand curve to shift outwardly, it means that all the other factors that we talked about, like income, like the price of a related commodity, consumers' taste and preference changing, and all the other expectations in the future. If there's a change in any of these, it will result in a bodily shift. If there's a change in the price of the commodity in question, it will lead to change, it will result in change in quantity demanded. So we should be able to differentiate between a change in demand and a change in quantity demanded. Please, are we clear to this point?
Yes, please.
Okay. All that we have done so far is look at the behavior of consumers. Now let's turn our attention to look at the behavior of sellers or producers. So you're a seller. So for a consumer, we saw that for a consumer, when the price, because we are rational, when the price increases, we want to buy less of it. When the price falls, we want to buy more of it. If you are a producer or a seller, all things being equal, your factors of production, cost that you incur in coming out with the product is still the same. For some reason, the price has increased. What will you do? If all other factors, cost of production, everything is the same, the price has increased. What will you do? Would you put more of the commodity in the market or you put less of it in the market?
Sir, please, the question again. Madam, sorry, the question again.
Please, we are having a discussion. Please pay attention. I don't have to repeat every question. So please, when we are having a discussion, follow, pay attention. Okay.
Hello, madam.
So let me put the question again. The question was that.
Hello.
Can you hear me?
Please, I
Madam,
can't
no,
hear
we
you
are
well.
not hearing you. We are not hearing your
Madam,
voice.
Can you hear me now?
It's okay for now, but when you keep on talking, like it keeps on going back. We can't hear properly.
Okay. Well, there's a network issue. You need to bear with me. So my question is that if you are a seller, we should look at the behavior of consumers so far. We are moving on to producers or sellers. So the question is, if you are a seller or a producer, and all the other factors are the same, the cost that you incur in producing, everything is the same, nothing has changed. The only thing is that for some reason, the prices of a commodity have on the market have increased. Okay, but your cost of production, everything is still the same. If you're a seller, what will you do? Will you offer more of the goods for sale or you offer less for sale?
I offer more of the goods for sale.
Why would you offer more for sale?
Because when the prices have not changed, your capital and everything has not changed. But the customers and in the market, the prices too has increased. So I would go for more so that I can get more profit.
Exactly. That is how, thank you. That's how a typical producer or seller would want to behave. When the prices, all things are being equal, when the price increase on the market increases, they would want to offer more for sale because they are in for profit. So they want to maximize their profit. But consumers will want to maximize their satisfaction. So you see there is conflicting goals for the consumers and the suppliers. When prices are high, producers or suppliers would want to offer more for sale. So that leads us to the law of demand. And the law of demand says that all things being equal, the higher the price of commodity, the higher the quantity that is supplied. And the lower the price of the commodity, the lower the price. This means that there's a positive relationship between price and quantity. This time they are moving in the same direction. As price is increasing, quantity is also increasing. So we say there's a positive relationship between price and quantity of a commodity and quantity supplied of it. Okay, another way of stating it is there's a direct relationship between them. So as one increases, the other also increases.
Madam,
So
please, sorry, Jessica or Jess, please carry off your video. You are distracting us.
I should do what?
Sorry. I have no idea it's on. Sorry.
Okay, so mute yourself so that we won't get feedback. Here too, this is in the case of demand, we are interested in price, okay? The price at which the producer is willing to offer the goods for sale. Is willing to offer the sale, is able to offer the goods for sale. So willingness and ability is also key here. So the price is important. Let's look at this. So just as we have a demand schedule, we also have a supply schedule. The supply schedule is looking at the relationship between the price of a commodity and the quantity that is supplied per week. The relationship between the price and the quantity. So a tabular representation of the relationship between the price of the commodity and the quantities is what we call the demand schedule. Various prices, the quantities that we have been bought. So when it was 50, as price 50, quantity was 350. Okay, if it falls to 40, you see that quantity reduces. Okay, when it's 10, quantity reduces further to 150. So it moves in the same direction, positive relationship. When we plot it, this is how supply curve will look like. So graphical representation of the relationship that exists between price and quantity. Always when you draw it, you have to label your curve to show that it is describing a relationship between price and then quantity. And like we have seen, it slopes upwards. We say it slopes upwards from left to right. It slopes upwards from left to right. These are some of the terminologies that we use. Okay. So the various prices, and then the corresponding quantities that the producer or the seller is prepared to offer for sale. This is what we term as a supply chain. Okay. When you put it in an algebraic form, an algebraic expression, or when you put it in a form of an equation, you call it a supply function. So a supply function shows the relationship between price and quantity supply, just as the schedule and the curve did. So here to the general form is that quantity supplied is a function of price. It means that quantity supply depends on price. Okay, quantity supply is a function of price. And this is how we put the supply function. QS is equal to A plus BP. Why do we have a plus here? What does the plus sign tell us?
It's increasing. It's, it has an
Please,
positive.
Positive.
So it's positive, like it's
okay.
increased.
So
Yeah.
it confirms a positive relationship between it confirms a positive relationship between the price and the quantity. Okay. So in the same way, just as we saw in the demand function, the A that we have here is constant. So how would we call it? What name would we give to the A? Inferring from our discussion for the demand. How would you call the A?
Autonomous.
Autonomous supply. So the parts or the portion of supply that doesn't depend on price, that's autonomous supply. Okay, then the coefficient attached to B is autonomous, sorry, the derived demand or the coefficient, the intercept, the coefficient, and that is dependent on the price. So we should take note of that. It is positive, the coefficient is positive to tell us that there's a positive relationship between price and the quantity demanded. Okay. So let's take note of that. For the autonomous elements, I should have mentioned the time we're discussing the demand. If you, for autonomous demand, for instance, we talk about the fact that apart from the price of the commodity, there are other factors. So the related of commodity, the taste and preference, and all that. When you add up or you quantify the amount of quantity based on all the other factors, will give you the autonomous. So the other factors, the quantity of demand, that doesn't depend on price. But then it's influenced by the other factors like income and risk. And gives some up to give us autonomous demand. Okay. In the same way, the autonomous supply, there may be other factors. Look at that later and see that there may be other factors that will influence supply apart from the price of the commodity. So all these other factors, when you put them together, you get the autonomous supply. But because when we are looking at the supply function, we are saying that we want to simplify the analysis and look at the relationship between price of the commodity and quantity supplied. We involve more in other factors. In a way, we are ignoring the other factors for now. We are looking at just the relationship between the price and the quantity supply. So here, our autonomous supply is 20, and then coefficient or intercept is a 3. Okay, so that is the demand, the supply function. Okay, that is our supply function. Let's break here. Read on the determinants of supply. Okay, when we meet, we'll look at that. In the afternoon, when we meet, we'll look at the determinants of supply. And then This has to be distinguished between change in demand and change in quantity demanded. We also look at the difference between change in
Hello.
demand and change in quantity supplied. If you have any
Hello.
questions after reporting to, you can ask.
Hello.
Can you hear
Please,
me?
I can't hear you well.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, please, but it's too down. I can't hear very well.
Is it better now?
Yes, please.
Okay. So I'm saying that we are ending our discussion here, the morning session here. We are meeting in the afternoon to continue the discussion. I want you to read on the determinants of supply. Just as we saw for the case of demand, there are some other, apart from price of the commodity, there may be other factors that will influence the quantity that is being offered for sale. So please read on that. Then again, we'll look at the difference between change in supply and change in quantity supply. Change in supply and change in quantity supply. We'll look at these differences when we meet in the afternoon. If you have any questions on what we've discussed so far, with regards to demand and supply, please you can ask before we end this morning's session later.
Madam, please, you said you are meeting after what time, please?
In the afternoon, last week we met 1 to 2, so 1 o'clock we meet.
Thank you.
All right, thank you for your time. I'll see you later.
Please, are we all on the Econs platform?
Please,
No,
I'm on it.
no, please, I'm not on it.
I'm not, so please, can I send my number for you too?
Okay, so please kindly send your number so add you to the group.
Please, we've sent our numbers on the comment section, so check it out.
Oh, okay, I'll do that.
So, Mercy, why is it that I don't see you talking in class? I've been watching your DP for some time. I don't see you talking in class. Why?
Is that?
I said, I don't see you talking in class. Why?
I don't talk in class though. Is it for Econs or other groups? Like,
Na Aaron, question being.
It's like she doesn't raise her hands up. Like, I don't see her talking, except today.
Why is it by force?
No, it's not by force, but
Make you don't mind me.
at least, like, she should answer one question for me to see she's present.
Why you run? Yo, she has heard you
okay,
talk.
well, I'll do that.
Like how Yaira has been talking always. So I
Hey,
want,
please, I don't talk. I beg.
she's a parrot. So
Me, I'm a parrot, and you are what? We are done with the class. What are you guys waiting for?
so please, I'll send my number to please
Aaron, leave, leave.
I'm not leaving.
Why you want to sleep here?
I feel like I should waste my bundle small.
Waste it. Okay?
Okay.
Which I'm wasting it so that you send me some.
God forbid.
You're not okay.